Hi there, and welcome to episode 139 of the ADHD Adults Podcast. Possibly, maybe, probably, Series 2, Season 2. We're not really sure. Anyway, I'm James Brown, the man whose only emotions are grumpy and bloodlust. And as usual, I'm joined by Dr. Alex Connor, the man whose main emotion is I don't feel things, and the ebullient, exuberant, and frequently ecstatic Mrs. ADHD. Alex, hi.
I feel things. I feel lots of things right now. I'm feeling the handle of this chainsaw, for example. I feel lots of things.
Don't slip with it, by any chance. So is it the hellos seem to have segued into shit jokes, by the way? Is that
Yeah.
something new for this season, is it?
There aren't that many hellos, James.
Takes the pressure off you, doesn't it? Sam, hi.
Hi.
How are you both, Mrs. ADHD first?
I'm okay. How are you?
No.
No. Again.
Alex, how are you?
Thank you, James. Oh, listener numbers. Great question. Now we've got Tarquin the intern doing the metrics, and we've restarted season 2. We actually have some listeners, so that's good. I guess one of them sent us a letter. Can I read it out?
No.
But yes, and it's from Robert from Kidderminster, James. It says, I listened to your episode on insomnia. It was really meta of you to include a cure in the episode, by which I mean James' personal reflections, because he's a boring Dracula, you see. Thanks for clarifying that, Robert. It was a clever joke, so it needed clarifying in this company. I've had a real letter. Can I read it out?
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. It's from Chris with a kicking cur. Your podcast is a godsend. I live over in Northern Ireland, the part of the UK everyone forgot existed until Brexit happened. We
Oh
currently
my
have
God,
no
don't even
functioning
get me
government
fucking
and don't have an
started.
NHS service. I'm having to go private for mine on the 24th, aged 27. Your podcast is helping me unpack and make sense of all the childhood trauma I have, along with the symptoms that my ASD diagnosis didn't cover. Keep doing what you're doing. You guys are my NHS. Love you guys so much. I relate so much with all stuff. It's scary. Shout to Sam. You are a legend. Strong as nails. Did Sam write this?
Oh, that's so nice. And sorry, I talked over part of it. I started getting angry that there's no storm, but we just went for Brexit. But anyway,
Yeah.
I think
No,
you're
thank you
right
for that.
to.
and
Thank you.
thank
Sam,
you.
if you could immediately forget that positive feedback and just go back to self-loathing, that'd be terrific.
I will. Yeah, my brain
know.
just goes, you don't need that.
I've also got a
Don't you
note
say
from.
so?
Have you done it again? Have you done it again?
Yeah,
Because I did a little pause, didn't I?
you did. Yes, it was very
Sam,
confusing.
I really like it. I do get it though. It makes people really uncomfortable. I also have a note from the new metrics intern Tarquin about another city we've got listeners in, Sydney, in beautiful New South Wales, where an amazing 3% of our listeners are. The metrics intern has told us a fact about Sydney, which is the Sydney Opera House is actually a giant koala bear that disguises itself as a building during the day.
No, it's not. That's not true.
It isn't true.
Well, why did you say it then?
It's a fact about the Sydney Opera House. I
It's a fact,
love
apparently,
it.
Sam. We've been told this. We've been given this information as being factually correct.
It's a fact.
Hmm.
Do you know what I really like is that the script guy the script intern put koala bear in, which I really like. But the German for koala is koala bear, which ruins my favorite taxonomy joke.
Sorry, just to clarify, you have a favorite taxonomy joke.
That's right, James.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, as usual, I used to love this podcast, but now the moaning has superseded the useful inflow and humour to the point where I can no longer listen to it. Sorry, guys, of a podcast. It's a tragedy in 3 parts. We choose a theme.
Fair.
Last time around, we talked about ADHD and insomnia, and today we're focusing on ADHD and anhedonia, which got quite a bit of interest after Alex diagnosed me with it like he was a real doctor. Thanks to Pete, sorry, got distracted off of Discord, and the lovely Patricia or Patrice off of Discord also for suggesting this topic. As usual, The 3 parts include the Roland Rat of evidence, Alex the Psycho Education Monkey,
Give him.
talking about the theme, our personal reflections in part 2, and then finally, just a tip. So, Alex, you made me spend far too long reflecting on this. Tell us what it is with a bit of positivity, which I don't.
Yeah, come on, James, with the moaning. Right, anhedonia refers to the reduced ability to experience pleasure or positive emotions. No, hedonia. Obvs. There is something called the wheel of emotions. A quick internet search will find this, but it might lead you instead to the glass case of emotion scene from Anchorman, and then you'll spend 3 hours looking at other Anchorman scenes when you should have been. That was just me, I think.
Just to remind you, Alex, we're recording a podcast which is meant to be engaging. This is for people who get bored more easily.
I'm in a wheel of emotions. Anywho, you'll see when
not a
looking at
wheel.
it that there
Glass
are many.
case.
Jesus
What?
Christ.
Oh,
Incorrect.
no, sorry, you were making a joke. Sorry.
Yes. Incorrect. He didn't say I'm in a wheel of emotions. I said I'm in a glass case of emotions.
He did, yeah. I've even literally written that in the script. You were making a joke. It is amazing.
Sorry.
There are many, many different emotions, obviously, and subcategories of emotions. James hasn't got subcategories, he's got 2 emotions, but most people have loads. These emotions can be positive or negative. Again, not James, they're both negative. The DSM-5 defines anhedonia as lack of enjoyment from, engagement in, or energy for life's experiences. Deficits in the capacity to feel pleasure and to take interest in things.
That describes perfectly my experience when recording this podcast, just as an example to people out there.
Hush, hush, hush. Anywho, anhedonia has been referred to in scientific literature at least for 50 years and is a feature of several types of psychiatric disorders, maladaptive behaviors, I like that word, most commonly seen in and studied in, for obvious reasons really, depression, but also shown with other mental health conditions like schizophrenia and lots of others. Its link with depression is so strong that anhedonia is considered to be a core feature of major depressive disorder. And for example, the DSM-5 again, which is the big boring book of mental health stuff, requires that either low mood or anhedonia is required to be given a diagnosis of major depressive disorder, MDD. To make things even more interesting, I mean, they're not interesting, but the script intern thinks they are. Presence of anhedonia has been shown to be predictive of poor response to antidepressant therapy for people who have depression.
ADHD. Get to the point.
Oh, so hang on. So they give you antidepressants if you've got anhedonia, but if you've got anhedonia, antidepressants don't work.
Yeah, and so anhedonia, you don't need to have anhedonia to have depression. And if you are the anhedonic type of depression, it seems that the antidepressants don't work as well for your group.
Interesting.
And but they don't know why. I mean, there's a whole thing about whether antidepressants work or not. They work for some people.
Anyway, I messed that up.
You did, but you only missed James's rubbish ADHD question. So sadly, James, you are back. I'll get there and I'll talk about ADHD. If you could just have a little bit of patience and positivity, please. The absence of diagnostic specificity. I love that Birmingham accent. The absence of diagnostic specificity is a limiting factor when you're trying to define anhedonia, which means we don't really know how to diagnose it. Generally, a doctor will look for the symptoms of anhedonia by asking you questions, how you feel, what your moods are like, your emotions. Outside of the clinical setting, you've got behavioral tests. You can do electrophysiological measurements of your body and your brain. You can do interviews. You can do self-reports, which is shit. And these are often cited in research devoted to anhedonia.
So what is anhedonia? Why is it?
As always, Sam, a very good question, which James definitely didn't write for you. Agreed. Historically, anhedonia is always thought of as a loss of pleasure or a lack of pleasure. But we've kind of had a rethink, or studies have had a rethink, that are emphasizing different facets of hedonic function or feeling pleasure, including desire. Some of these might be familiar. Desire, effort, motivation, anticipation, consummatory pleasure. Recent research posits anhedonia is associated with deficits in the reward system, specifically anticipation, consumption, and learning of reward. That is, the reward system doesn't work very well at all in ADHD, and so the difficulty that we have engaging in unrewarding tasks could be argued to be partly anhedonia. Before James starts to foam at the mouth, because, he's a Dracula, let's quickly talk about alexithymia, which we've covered before, and I haven't made up because it's got my name in it. It is possible in ADHD, anhedonia could in fact be alexithymia, which means not being able to speak about your emotions or think properly about them. As many of us don't understand our own emotions effectively. Remember, we don't pay attention to what we pay attention to. And that might include not being able to recognize some emotional states.
So I should ask, because obviously I had a chat with the script intern before we recorded this. And so I'm asking for someone who definitely or almost certainly isn't me.
Yeah, someone else.
Yeah, could for example, years and years of substance abuse have caused could years and years of substance abuse have caused their anhedonia?
Flawless.
Mm.
Yes, in a word, findings from studies indicate that an anhedonia is higher in people dependent on a range of substances, and it typically appears as a consequence of substance use disorder or substance dependence. And James, and I think you're really going to enjoy hearing this bit, it diminishes with abstinence. And James, just for you, and I suppose our listeners, anhedonia is a common symptom of ADHD. Of course it is. And so the research there suggests that anhedonia severity may in fact be predictive of the severity of ADHD symptoms. In double fact, anhedonia may actually be an underlying transdiagnostic, great word, feature of many psychiatric and neurodevelopmental disorders, including ASD.
Oh, that's interesting. So what can we do about it?
That's a really good question, Sam, that James would never think to ask. All right.
There
is evidence that PAT can help. Not DJ
Sessions.
It's an acronym for Positive Affect Treatment, which is an intervention designed to specifically target deficits in reward sensitivity. It might help that. So it's very early days, considering how long we've known about anhedonia, but that there are some like therapeutic bases for it in the pipeline.
Well, I've got absolutely nothing positive to say about anything that you've just said, Alex. So in that vein, we'll take a break. Yeah, and we'll be back in part 2 for probably my personal reflections on anhedonia. See you in a bit.
Bye.
Oh, Alex, hi.
What's up? Hello, Governor.
Welcome back to episode 139 of of the ADHD adults, where we're talking about ADHD and anhedonia. That was the bit that I was just about to read, but then I stopped myself and said the ADHD adults instead.
Well.
Thank you. This is part 2, where James is talking about his personal reflections on anhedonia. We'll just listen. Do you want to start, James?
Yeah, I can do. I'd like to thank Alex for diagnosing me with this as a real, actual medical doctor.
I thought you knew.
No, I didn't. I genuinely didn't. I've talked about this. We've talked about this, I think, when we used to do the Friday episodes in season 1 of the podcast. And I talked a bit about it on ADHD Towers. And I went through this really fucking intense, probably 4 or 5 week period of just almost hyper focusing on, have I ever felt positive emotions? Have I ever felt happy? Do I know what happy is? Is it anhedonia, or is it just that I'm actually happy, but I don't know what happy is? And I genuinely do think I do have anhedonia. Now, obviously, I'm very open about the way in which I've crammed lots of different things up my nose over the past 30 to 40 years. And therefore, there's a chance that substance abuse being associated with anhedonia and lack of abstinence from it can indicate that that could be something that I do have.
It's
The
just
reason,
great, James, that now you know that you're just gonna, take on the abstinence with a.
oh yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. From now on, yeah, no more, Alex, no more. Absolutely, I'm not days clean. If you look at the wheel of emotions, so if you Google wheel of emotions, there's lots of different kind of forms of these, but it's quite a useful tool because in it you'll have at the center of this wheel kind of the broad emotions like happy, sad, fearful, angry, and then coming out in the outer parts of that wheel, you've got almost like subcategories of emotions. And I have looked through every single one of the happy sub emotions or subcategories, and the only one that I can honestly feel like often is contentment, is content. There's an element of trusting because like, there are people that I trust, but
Hello.
even curious and inquisitive are kind of fleeting things. And there's just the best way I can describe this is that Sam and I used to go to Pike's Hotel in Ibiza a lot. It was kind of our happy place. We go there, it's glorious sunshine. We've got our friends there. We arrive, check in, unpack, go out, and Sam would be obviously Sam, which is, oh, James, isn't it wonderful? Look at the sunshine, look at the garden, it's so lovely. And I'd just be thinking, it's all right, it's okay. But I would mask and say, yeah, no, yeah, it's lovely. Or we'd go and watch the sunset. In Ibiza, and you've got like hundreds of people who are all sat there, and you can just see that you've got this glorious kind of vista in front of you of the sea and some islands and the sun coming down and music playing, and all I can think is, oh, come on, how long does it take for the sun to go down, for God's sake? And just sit there.
I want to get out and bite people.
Yeah, exactly.
Gonna take the hood off.
Exactly. And I don't know. I don't like the thought that I am not a happy person because I don't see myself as an unhappy person, if that makes sense, even though I clearly am.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
very much so.
I have to honestly acknowledge the fact that I don't feel positive emotions, or I certainly don't feel them in the same way as other people. And that's something I've got to start working through, I think.
I remember when you showed me around your new house and you bought it. It was such a nice and a brilliant move from where you were before. And I said, oh, and what do you think of it? And you said, it's a house. That's literally all you said. You didn't seem to understand the question.
Yeah. I know. I used to try and get you to feel that, didn't I?
Yeah, we'd sit outside and
I'd sit outside and go, look, this is your house. You wanted a really nice house, and now we've got one. Remember? And yeah, it didn't work, did it?
No, it really didn't. Sam, what about you?
I don't have this. I mean, I do have. Yeah, I feel all the happy things to the extreme. I'm almost the opposite of James. I do have alexithymia, so I do have problems feeling some emotions, or I get confused as well, and I don't know quite what I'm feeling. Or anyway, I don't have this. What about you, Alex?
A couple of big caveats here. Big ringing klaxons, a massive, great ringing bell. It is that as you get older, your positive emotions in general are blunted in everyone. So, and everyone feels a bit anhedonic sometimes, which is a very ADHD critical thing to say. I appreciate that. And also, the meds of ADHD can appear like anhedonia, because we often concentrate on something. We're not distracted by anything, positive or negative. So it sometimes feels like when you're on ADHD meds that oh God, I didn't enjoy that. But actually what you didn't do is remember it because it wasn't a distraction. So if you spend 2 hours doing your job that you were supposed to be doing, you're not up and down and all over the place because you're not being distracted, because that's what the meds do. And it can appear like anhedonia. They don't do
that for me.
I mean, they do. They literally do. They help you focus on a task a bit more, right? They're not,
even if it's not a work task.
So
Oh, right,
you're,
yes.
you're not
I still
distracted
get
by,
very
a bird
distracted,
flying
though.
down the window as much.
Okay.
But they also do have a side effect of anhedonia in some people.
Oh.
I think I might be one of them a little bit. It's slightly blunted, not much, but I have to remind myself to think slightly more positively because
Oh,
I
that's
don't know if it's
interesting.
just the way the meds work. Is I'm in the olden days I would always distract myself because because anything lasting more than 3 minutes is tedious, and so I needed to, and now I don't need to as much. I worry that but it's really hard to know whether it's the actual effect of the meds or real anhedonia. What I do know is when I had 10 days off the meds, I was exactly the same. So it's probably just my age.
Oh. Oh, yeah.
Imagine being
No time for the
350.
game, James. That seems reasonable.
Definite time for the game, Alex. In fact, we're well in time. We're
it's-
well under time, in fact. This has
And
been a
it's
relatively
1-0,
short
is it?
version.
1-0 this season.
It is 1-0. And
Right.
let's not brag too much ahead of the event because let's face it, you're going to drop the ball at some point, multiple times during however long this season is, because we didn't plan to have seasons.
Well, aren't
So-
they both 136 episodes?
Exactly. That's the natural length for a season.
is,
of
yeah.
podcast.
Ding!
136 episodes. Right, this is t-shirt based. A minute, by the way, I'm wearing a Brian Brains t-shirt, which the lovely Cat sent me. Thank you very much,
Nice.
Cat. And in last week's episode, I was wearing one which I made when I was fucking around trying to make some merch for us, and it was the "I have a defect of moral control" t-shirt. Now I've made lots of these t-shirts using a Cricut system and a heat press.
Do go on.
Yes, you're not boring. I have ADHD one. I have a defect of moral control. Alex has ADHD is a difference, not a disorder. I've made all these t-shirts normally to wear on the podcast. But I obviously there's quite a few that have gone in the bin because I fucked something up. But I made one where I didn't notice that I had made a spelling error or an omission as I printed and then pressed the lettering onto the t-shirt. So what was the mistake?
Oh, nice.
Did I do a t-shirt that says I have an effect of moral control? Did I do a t-shirt that says you're not boring, I have DHD? Or did I do a t-shirt that said the ADHD adults?
Oh, that's a really good one. I don't think you said effect of moral control because you never miss an opportunity for the D.
Oh, very, very good, Alex. Very
Thank
good.
you very much.
Humor.
Yeah, I don't think it's ADHD adults because that's the type you've already made and would have noticed. So I think you've done DHD. I think you've gone for deficit hyperactivity disorder. Look at your little smug face. You look really happy.
So the scores are Alex 1, James 1. You got it wrong, you big cock.
It was adults, wasn't it?
No, it was no. I've got an effect of moral control. I missed off. Alex. I missed the D.
First time for everything. That's slightly homophobic.
Exactly.
No, it wasn't at all.
Not at all. Yeah. So it's 1-1. I'm happier now. Well, I'm not happy because I don't know what happy is, but I'm certainly less negative about things. We'll take a break and we'll be back for some tipping, just a tip, in part 3.
Shit game. Welcome back to episode 139, season 2 of the ADHD Adults. We're talking about ADHD and anhedonia, or not feeling pleasurable stuff. As always, in part 3, we're just the tip. James has changed it on the script again. He's just trying to annoy me. I say James, I mean the intern. We're giving our top tips, just the tip, for how to deal with anhedonia, presumably. James, top tip.
Is that a person called anhedonia? Because how to deal with her could be very different to the tips we're going to give for being anhedonic, for example. So if your name is anhedonia, by the way, write in, say hi. I'd like to find out. God. Yes, write in a letter. You get letters, so why can't I get letters? Or
PO
we
Box
get
69.
No. It's a tough one to give tips for because at the minute I'm really struggling with working out, what to do with this information. I think the best tip that I can give is probably that if you are at that point where you think this could be something that affects you, and it's kind of related to emotional acceptance, blah, blah, blah. I've gone through a lot of self-hatred in the last 6 weeks at thinking that when I'm sat with Mrs. ADHD, I'm not happy. And at thinking that in some of the, I think the problem is I can't use the language. Some of the happiest times in my life, in other words, some of the least shit times, the most least shit times, grammatically, Alex, you're going to eviscerate that, aren't you?
Yeah, most least shittest.
Yeah, the most least shittest times of my life when I've been with Mrs. ADHD in some of, some wonderful places with people that I love, I've not been happy. And I've masked the fuck out of myself to say, yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's been lovely doing this. And I haven't been. These are things that happen to me. That's something that happened. We went on that holiday, that happened. We went to a party or a wedding, that happened. And that is something that gives me a lot of guilt because I feel like Sam, and she isn't, but I feel like she must be thinking, what, you mean you're not happy when you're with me? You mean, when we do these things, you're not happy? And to me, the only way I think, and I don't know, but I think define happiness or what is happiness to me is feeling safe. It's the absence of the negative emotions. If I don't have the anxiety, the fear, the low mood, the anger, the irritability, if I don't have that, that's about as positive as I get. And that to me is when I'm with Sam. That is as happy as I get. But there's a lot of self-loathing about this, of really feeling like I'm getting quite upset actually. That I'm not normal. Someone else better go.
Well, you're not normal, but
Mm.
the main top tip is for that, which is emotional acceptance that contentment is enough, that you're enough. As you know, James, and support and like, I've practiced elements of Buddhist meditation for many years, and there's nothing I think you like more about that. But what you learn doing it is that you're not aiming for happiness. You're aiming
Yeah.
for peace, contentment, and safety is enough. If you're feeling safe as a human, especially an ADHD human, it's enough. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Emotional acceptance that there is no supposed to. Like there's no way of grieving. There's no way to be happy. The idea of happiness as a goal is wrong. It's the wrong way to think. And I don't normally say advice because I'm shit at it, but it isn't what humans should be thinking. They should be thinking contentment is enough. So if you're feeling safe at home, it's better than a lot of people beating yourself up because you're not flushed with serotonin biologically. It's just pernicious and unhelpful guilt.
We do it though, don't we?
I think you muted Sam. Muted yourself, pressed your little button, haven't you?
Ding.
Get the tech
Sorry, I was just saying you shouldn't feel bad that you don't feel happy because I don't give a fuck how you feel. It's all about
in fact, I kind of prefer it when you're unhappy. It's funnier.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, for the metrics, for example.
What an actual top tip, James, is an intellectual positive lens instead of an emotional one, which means, and obviously it might require writing down a couple of the things that make you feel content at a time or safe. And ironically, considering that horrible review about us being moaners, a positive lens rather than toxic positivity is an evidence-based support, almost treatment for ADHD. So not going, I can do anything, I could be a famous impressionist, but it's actually being grateful and thinking about the things that you can do because they're in your list of special interests, the things you are able to do at the moment, the hobbies you're able to start, even if you never pick them up again, being grateful for them. I literally thank them, James. I even thank negative thoughts on my own, James. I thank them like I'm thanking the universe, James.
Look, I didn't miss this, I didn't miss this during the break.
But if I can give you one thing, it's that safe is enough, content is enough.
Yeah.
Good. The word should can get in the fucking sea.
Thank
Sam.
you.
Oh, me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess a bit more on what Alex was saying. and we've talked about this as well before, happy doesn't mean the same thing for everybody. So
No.
your happy might not be bursting with joy and laughter and skipping round in fields in the sun. Definitely not yours, James.
Hate
It
to
might
see it.
be.
Yeah.
It might be feeling content on the sofa, rewatching your favourite TV programme for the 87th time. That
Yeah.
might be your happiness.
Rugrats.
You shouldn't compare your happiness to other people's, especially not mine, because I am ridiculous. And
Yeah.
people lie and misrepresent how they feel
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And you can't expect yourself to feel the way other people are feeling. Like, it's a bit like pain, when it's difficult to know if you're in a lot of pain because you can't compare the amount of pain you're in to the amount of pain someone else would feel,
Mhm.
because we all feel pain differently and we've got different thresholds for pain. So when they say, how painful is it on a scale of 1 to 10, your 1 might be somebody else's 10. You've got no idea. And I think it's the same with happiness and other emotions. We all feel them differently and at different levels. So I get ridiculously overjoyed if I see an insect or just an object that looks pleasing to me. And I'm almost disordered in the opposite way to you. But then there are lots of other emotions that I can't differentiate between or identify. You are you, and you're beautiful, and I love you, and you shouldn't feel bad about that.
I mean,
Nice.
that last bit isn't
Yeah.
objectively true.
She tailed off at the end, didn't she? To be
Yeah.
fair,
I did, sorry.
It was good. It was
It's
good
called
And
until
at
positive
the
then.
beginning,
overwhelm.
and in the middle.
Yeah, and the less said about the end, the better.
Ding.
Yeah, that over too much joy, James. It's called positive overwhelm, and it's disordering for for people who feel it. So
Yeah.
it's sometimes being in that middle ground can be, if you don't beat yourself up. I mean, plenty of people will beat you up for you. You don't need to do it yourself.
I think fucking try. What I'd say is, and maybe I don't know if I explained it properly, and I absolutely accept everything you said. You're right, and I think there's a great irony and hypocrisy in this that I will say to people that I coach, that you need to challenge these negative internal thoughts that you have, this negative bias that we have, by saying positive things, affirmations, journaling, by getting yourself to accept these positive things. And I know that when I'm having that thought process of Sam must feel terrible that I'm not happy around her, that there's only one person having that conversation. It's me.
Yeah.
It's my head imagining what Sam says. And I know that, but it is, I think, still difficult, because when you've got a lifetime of, when you look back and you've got a lifetime of kind of not being happy, it's just another way to be othered. And I absolutely accept everything you guys have said. It's really supportive. And I deeply, deeply like both of you a little bit. And appreciate the time we don't spend together.
Good effort.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, that was episode 139, season 2-ish, maybe, of the ADHD Adults podcast, where we talked about me. If by a miracle you enjoyed this episode, you can find more content by subscribing on Patreon, or visit the website www.adhdadults.uk to find out more, to get in touch. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye all.
Trigger warning klaxon, 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 big klaxon. Trigger warning klaxon, 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 klaxon. Trigger warning klaxon, 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 big klaxon. Trigger warning klaxon, 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 klaxon. Trigger warning klaxon, 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 big klaxon, big klaxon. Trigger warning klaxon. Klaxon, klaxon, klaxon.